So just a few minutes, and then maybe 7:02 we'll get started. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started here. We can, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is John Belsick. I am the president of the Development Council. I want to welcome you all here tonight to, on this cold Wednesday evening. I appreciate you guys coming out, willing to listen. Hopefully we'll have some good discussion. We got a couple things that we wanted to talk about. I'll have a couple of my fellow board members kind of man the chat, man the if you have your questions, feel free to raise your hand, type it in the chat. We will try to stay on top of that. Feel free to ask anytime, but we'll also have some time at the end if you have questions or want to discuss something that we talked about. We're happy to talk further about it, or if we don't know the answer, we'll find an answer for you and then get back to you. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here, just so we can everybody can see that, right? Just neighborhood updates. Okay. So like I said, we're just going to go over a couple neighborhood things that that we've been working on that have come to our attention, and kind of things that have been brought to us over the past, I think around Thanksgiving time. So there's quite a bit. So here's the agenda for tonight. So we're going to very briefly go over the Chicago Community Challenge application that we had sent in before the holidays. We're going to talk about some ward redrawing discussions that have been going on. Some things about the Ashland corridor, specifically the TOD corridor on Ashland, and kind of just some things that we've things that have popped up and things that we've been discussing with a couple other people and groups. And then lastly, we're talking about the Southwest Industrial Corridor Transportation Planning Study that's going on currently. So we'll start with the bad news first. Our Chicago Community Challenge grant, we did not receive the grant. For those of you who were kind of following it, this was a big effort, kind of led by us, but it was a collaboration between the community garden, the mutual aid garden, the play garden, and then kind of MPAC was kind of an ancillary part, but they were also critical in giving us some letters of support and working with the park district here. Even though we did not receive the $1.5 million extra line item in the parks budget, we are slated, or we're at least in line to receive these upgrades that we proposed to both community garden and the skating rink within the next 2 to 3 years, depending on the park's funding cycle. So even though we didn't win it, for this year, it's very likely that, it's very likely that we will get at least some of what we proposed and asked for over the next 2 or 3 years. So it won't come all at once, but we'll be talking with the park and the city and whoever else needs to be involved to kind of keep people aware of what's going on there. So disappointing, but also good that we had presented a good enough plan that the city was like, we'll give you some money anyway, just not right away. So exciting. All right. The next thing that we want to talk about is, for those of you who don't know, because 2020 was a census year, the city, as well as the city gets to redraw the ward maps that we're all in. So the city is going to divide itself up into 50 roughly equal wards based on the population that was recorded in 2020. It's about 54,000 people. So the aldermen and alderwomen are currently in negotiations, trying to come up with a finalized map. They've been doing this for a number of months, actually. And because they were unable to meet the deadline by getting 41 alder people to agree on an initial map, they're renegotiating, and they have until May 19th to agree on a new proposed map, which as of right now there are a number of. If they don't do that, that goes to June 28th, where it becomes those ballots or those maps are then put on a ballot that the citizens get to vote on it in a referendum. So that's basically all my superficial knowledge goes for ward redrawing. I'm going to turn it over to my fellow board member, Anthony. I believe he is on here somewhere. There we go. Anthony. He can give you some of the details about what we are doing and proposing to the city council in terms of trying to get the best bang for our buck for the ward and for the neighborhood, to kind of make discussions about projects and developments easier and more centralized if we're all in one ward. So Anthony, go right ahead. And I'll drive for you with these links. So. Can't hear you. 1 second. Okay.
Okay, how about that?
Perfect.
All right. Zoom's changing my inputs on me. Apologize. And I did change a link on here, folks, for the registration. I did drop the correct link to register if you wish to attend Friday's meeting, which is at 10 a.m. This coming Friday. You go to the Shy City Clerk website. That is in the chat. They are also accepting public comments that they will consider. So if you don't have the time, don't have the ability to speak during the virtual meeting, you can submit written comments to that email address that's also included in the chat. What is our position on this, or where kind of are we, sitting right now? There were two maps that were proposed, and we think that one map kind of aligns more closely to what our, stated goals are as an organization. And, we've deliberated on this and we've discussed, some pros and cons, but we currently, in a letter that we have drafted up to be shared with not just the aldermen, but also with the rules committee, we're currently favoring the map that was submitted on December 1st by the coalition map, which is basically, for all intents and purposes, the same map that was submitted by the Latino caucus. What this map does is a couple of things. It, one, keeps all of McKinley Park within one ward. The alternate map that was submitted by the rules committee, which I believe aligns closest with the Black Caucus map. This map cuts into McKinley Park a little bit and does not include parts of that kind of important Ashland corridor, which is a TOD zone. And as all of you, recall, what our neighborhood plan that was developed by, you all, by the residents of McKinley Park, core to that is targeting, development, affordable housing, and enriching culture in our entire neighborhood. And we feel that allowing the neighborhood to be residing within one ward, which includes the CMD, that Ashland corridor, are very, very important to us to be able to put those proposals forward, or to at least fight to get those proposals forward, and not have to track down multiple alder people, depending on where projects are. We feel like this is going to allow us to continue to fight for development and changes by allowing us to just target one alderman or a few aldermen really, and not multiple more aldermen. Additionally, what the coalition map does, and this was, reported by them as this was submitted, that they also are able to accomplish here an Asian majority ward. So that would be mainly the Bridgeport and North area. And this is something that Alderman Thompson is currently kind of, a bargaining piece that he is not fully in favor of, but this map accomplishes that. And this was a proposal that's been in the works for, over 10 years. And after the last census, Chicago's Asian community has grown significantly, I think by 30%. So that was very, very, very important in order to have representation at City Hall, to have the first Asian majority ward in this coalition map, as reported by them, in a lot of their press releases, it does that. So it accomplishes that while not dividing up the McKinley Park neighborhood, and it includes the CMD and the Ashland corridor within the neighborhood, which helps us on advocacy. As noted by John, aldermen are going to continue negotiating this thing. I don't believe that Friday's meeting is the last opportunity that we have to continue to advocate for one of the two maps over the other. As we noted, we submitted a letter which we can share with you in PDF form. If you all feel inclined to do so, you all can use that as a draft to also share with our aldermen, as well as the committee. And again, the person to contact is in chat. So that's available to you along with a Google form that we've put together. We think as a group, what helps is not just having a letter that states our position, but also to have some neighbors have the opportunity to sign on with what our proposals are and where our preferences are. That will certainly add weight to what we are saying in terms of where the rest of the community is at. So that is an opportunity. Yeah, I will drop, there should be some Google shape files. And John, if you don't want to go browsing, I could drop those in the chat for you all. We feel that allowing folks in the community to sign on to either endorse our position, to read our letter and endorse the position, and sign on to a Google form that we put together, will help us show that there is groundswell or communal support for one map over the other. And again, our position is that we, for all intents and purposes, favor the coalition map over the rules committee map in its current form. Our alder people will continue to negotiate again through May. So it is very, very highly likely that ward boundaries may change in between now and then in order for them to secure those 41 votes. But we feel like highlighting, as we do in our letter, those key components, our plan, the CMD, that we favor an Asian majority ward. And we also favor having an ability to advocate for the environmental issues in our neighborhood are very, very important to us. And we feel like, as drawn, the coalition map will allow us an easier time to do that, to at least have to track down less aldermen than we would have otherwise have to do based on some of the other submissions. I don't want to keep rambling, John. So although I can, if there's just kind of general questions, you can drop them in the chat and I can address them there. Or, at the end of the meeting, if there's additional questions, certainly, answer to the best of our ability with this.
Yeah, you can also raise their hands too. We can just, do a live Q&A right now as well, if they want, if that's more preferred. Go ahead, Kate.
Hey, I had a question for Anthony. So the Rules Committee is having a public comment meeting specifically about the maps this Friday, as in day after tomorrow. the link that you guys posted for the meetings is for the entire city council next week. Is that also specifically about maps?
No, but the registration information for folks to attend committee meetings is on the Chicago Clerk's website. If there's a specific page in there, let me go navigate to that. But
Oh, okay, cool. All right.
But to register for attending committee and or just city council meetings, it's all there. But this is particularly on Friday, a council committee meeting of the Committee on Rules, where they are taking public comment. So that is the meeting folks would want to attend to directly talk about maps, because that is the forum that they have specifically on maps. Not saying you shouldn't just go to the city council meeting and talk about maps too, but that's the specific forum that they're working from. So if I could find a better or more specific link to register for that particular meeting, let me try to dig that up and put it in the comments. Okay.
I'm going to try to go. I will listen. Anybody can listen in without registering. I called the number and I wrote the person to try and get a spot to speak on Friday, and I haven't heard back from anybody. So if anybody knows how to do this better, I would also really appreciate that information.
Like Anthony said, if you don't have the ability to attend on Friday, but you still want to voice your opinion, we do have a draft letter that people can take and modify to their own that we can link to. But we also have a Google form for a letter that voices our opinion. If you agree with what we say and don't really want to add to too much to it, you can just sign on to that, and we will distribute that to the powers at be. And if one of my co-board members can drop a link to that form in the chat here, we can you guys can just go right to it either during or after the meeting. The more voices we get on this thing, the better. Let me go up. We'll go up. I see a question in the chat from, let's see, multiple aldermen equals multiple menu budgets. Could this mean more resources toward McKinley Park? Could this be considered a pro? I guess in a way, just speaking free form here, I guess in a way it could. But part of me thinks that if then we would have to negotiate with multiple aldermen or older people, some maybe more or less receptive to what we as a community would want. If there's less residents in that they oversee it in their part of the ward versus say in Bridgeport or back of the yards or the Lower West Side or something, they might see that as more of a priority versus 2 blocks in McKinley Park. So it could go either way. It very well could be a pro, and if someone has better knowledge than me, please speak up. But that is a good point, though. Yeah, go ahead, Kate.
On that point, actually, if you would highlight the people's map, I can explain why this is a problem. So we were for this map until we were against it. Because in the first 2 revisions, it was the first map that kept all of us together. And in the final revision, you can see that they've separated the majority of the neighborhood from both the park itself and the CMD, which is terrible because nobody in back of the yards yes, back of the yards does experience particulate and other pollution from the CMD, but they don't experience the smell. So just imagine the difference between calling your alderman and saying we have a couple, 200 people over here who smell something, and or calling your alderman and saying we have 15,000 people over here who smell something. And that is a really, really big difference in our leverage over some of this stuff. And one of the major reasons that we want to stay together.
I can add too, if you want.
Go ahead, John.
I've been John Koo. I've been a resident for close to 25 years here. And I was part of when they switched the ward boundaries before. I used to work at William Wrigley Jr. Company. We, as a development council, had no real say-so in all of the redevelopment there on Ashland, which should have been natural for us because Ashland borders our neighborhood, and there's no other border there because the river is on the other side of it. But we had no say-so. Luckily, and I know there's other controversies out there with the alderman of the 11th ward now, right? Allegations, but we really didn't have no say in any of that. Luckily, he was listening to us, but in the end, we decided that we need to start having control of our area, whether it's environmental issues, development issues, industrial issues, and some of these gerrymandering, what happened in the last ward remap, we wanted to reverse it. So I just want to add that the Ashland area is not part of our ward across Ashland, east of Ashland. And we didn't have no say in many of those issues that happened, whether it was traffic patterns, developments, or developers come in, they would listen to us, but they really didn't have to hear us and do what we asked for because we weren't in that ward. So that's one example that you can see that side of Ashland, we didn't have no control over what happened there. And there's going to be issues that we anticipate, but we're working with different people and constituencies to help that out. So thanks.
Yeah, and I recognize that, you know, by keeping us in one continuous ward, there might be other neighborhoods that get chopped up, and you know, that's unfortunately how the city council works, and they kind of, you know, they determine their own boundaries, and that's true at all levels of government, basically. But if we can, you know, advocate as a neighborhood to one, or if we have to, two aldermen versus what we currently do is three, it makes it just a little bit easier for residents to have a united voice when it comes to just, you know, things that we want, we need, we deserve, and you know, kind of drive the conversation in a direction that we want, rather than being told that, hey, this is happening, sorry, deal with it, kind of thing. So if we can sort of make it a better job, you know, make it more resident driven than you know, city hall driven, I think that's a positive just all around. All right. Any other questions, comments on this? I don't want to spend too much more time on this. And like I said, we'll drop in the link to the letters and forms if you guys want to do that. I think there's a deadline for when you can sign up to talk. I think it's 10 a.m. It's the day before. I want to say it's 10 a.m. the day before, maybe noon the day before, but it's soon. So if you want to talk, do it sooner rather than later. All right. All right, let's minimize this. We'll go to the next thing here. Okay, so like we were talking about, like John was mentioning, you know, Ashland is a part of an eTOD corridor. And we're going to specifically highlight that in section 5.1 of our neighborhood plan, it talks about this part of the neighborhood, actually. And it talks about how we can better utilize this part of the neighborhood by enhancing the built environment along Ashland Avenue, specifically in the sense of how it relates to the eTOD eligibility of the whole, you know, basically 1 mile of Ashland Avenue, all the way from Pershing up to the Orange Line stop, which pertains to us. I have up here on the map just a rough zoning outline, just highlighting different zoning sections along Ashland. All the yellow on here is the residential, so that's, you know, our single family homes, 2, 3, 4 flats. But the vast majority of the east side of Ashland is PMD 8, so it's the Planned Manufacturing District. So that is where all like John was saying, where the Wrigley building was, and now where the Aviation Institute is, and it goes into some of those larger warehouses. There's other things like planned developments, as well as commercial district and business district. Most of the west side of Ashland, so this side here, is all commercial or business district. But something that we wanted to point out and kind of highlight here is the corner of Pershing and Ashland. That's zoned for manufacturing as well as commercial uses. And we bring this up because there was a proposal that was brought to our attention by the alderman's office about a potential development going in at the corner here. No concrete plans, but just kind of some ideas floating out there. This is the corner that we're talking about, and the potential plan was for a mix of a drive-through / strip mall in that section. We had spoken with the proposed developer or the representative for the developer for this project. They admitted that correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, they admitted that there's no concrete plan. They had no prospective tenants, but this was a viable idea for this section of the neighborhood. So we informed them of the neighborhood plan and kind of what we had initially thought of, like, hey, this should be more TOD oriented. So they took it back to who they were representing, and they seemed to be receptive of what we talked about.
Yeah, so the guy's name is Adam. I actually invited him tonight, and he said he didn't, since there wasn't like a concrete plan, he didn't feel comfortable talking to everybody. But he was actually a super nice guy and very receptive, and actually read the neighborhood plan before he called me. So that's a good thing right off the bat. So what he did say is that they had drafted this image of a drive-through there. It doesn't sound like they entirely want to build to suit a prospective tenant, but they felt like they needed something to kind of show around and say, hey, prospective tenant, this is one of the things we could do for you. So I also talked to him about some of the stuff going on with the city, where the city is actually seriously considering banning drive-throughs and strip malls in TOD zones. I found out about the strip malls last week. So I think the drive-throughs might pass. The strip malls, there's some questions. Because of course there are certain types of business, like our neighborhood health clinic is in a strip mall. So how do we handle certain types of things like that, how do we ban certain types of construction without driving out certain types of essential services? But I think it's a really good conversation to have, and I'm glad that the city is having it. But back to this particular lot. So the owners live in Bridgeport. I didn't get a name. But they own this lot and the lot behind it, where you can see the old restaurant in the background there. And he said that the developer actually mostly does single family housing, which I thought was kind of interesting that they bought this lot. So I'm wondering, like, how much do they really know what to do? As we're having these conversations about visioning for this lot, I would like to solicit opinions about, like, possibly just bringing them into some of these conversations that we're having, because if we have a developer who's willing to play ball and kind of hear what the community wants on that lot, maybe that works for us.
Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, I'm gonna go back one slide. But some of the recommendations in the plan was that, we prioritize some infill sites, so like these vacant lands, and kind of lean more towards things like mixed uses, so a mix of residential / things on the first floor, like commercial spaces or stuff like that, but also not overlooking things like streetscaping opportunities like beautification, encouraging walkability, bikeability. I know this isn't the most friendly corner in the neighborhood, but you have to start somewhere. And if this is an open lot, we can kind of advocate for, just a better streetscape in general here, and hopefully eventually, as more of these vacant lots get filled in, we can kind of expand that beautification footprint. So that's just some general ideas that I had and we had. A bike only drive-through, yes, John, that'd be a good one. So if anyone's got any questions or just initial thoughts on this, like I said, there's no concrete plan, but the more ideas we have to come to the table, when someone does come to us, we can just say, hey, this is what we heard, this is what we the community wants. All right, Josh has a question. What is the update on the Alderman's plan downzoning of the west side of Ashland? I believe it included this parcel. No, I have not gotten an update on the Alderman's plan to downzone. I know there was a little bit of questions, and I don't want to call it pushback, but just some questions around like how well thought out this is, because while there are houses and some business or some residences on this side of Ashland, there are a lot of businesses too that need to have a commercial zoning, and we don't, of course, want to shut down commercial zoning on Ashland, because that's what happened on 35th Street. Now 35th Street is all houses, so there's got to be a balance here. so I can make a note here, and we can talk to the alderman about what if there is a further plan about down zoning and what specifically that he wanted. That's a good point. Thank you.
Well, and there's a big difference between having its own commercial and having its own industrial.
Yeah.
You know, we don't need any more polluters moving in without notice. But one other thing I wanted to bring up about this, we have, while we're looking at the TOD map, we have a conversation scheduled with some folks from urban planning at UIC to discuss the possibility, and it is at this point just a possibility, of having some of their graduate students work with us on visioning for our TOD in the neighborhood. And it would be like a summer class for the students. And so in that regard, we'd really like to get some ideas from the community about the kind of things we would want this group to look at. Like, do we want them to think about like the kinds of businesses that we want to bring in, or mixed use housing, or green space, or, you know, like what, you know, they're only going to have a limited amount of time. So we can't be like, yeah, we just want to fix everything. But there are a couple ways we could structure it, right? Like we could look at just a couple of blocks. We could look at just the area around the orange line. We could look at just Ashland, or we could say we want to look at spreading mixed use throughout the neighborhood. So like we want to have some kind of focus for them, but would really like to hear people's ideas about what's important to you. And it doesn't have to be right now. You can also like write us as you think of things.
You can always email us after the fact, message us, track one of us down. We all live in the neighborhood, and I know I'm out every day walking the dog, so you can easily stop me in the street like, hey, I have an idea.
Yep. Well, if I can add, one of the things we're being concerned about as a council is actually the traffic and possible pollution for all these trucks now that are going to be coming back and forth there. So anyone who has ideas on that, whether it's more trees or anything, we don't want barriers because we like an open neighborhood. That's what we have here. But any ideas that we could come up with that can reduce noise or pollution or anything like that, and beautify it, that's what we're looking for. So we've been working on that for a little while now. So we'd appreciate that too. Any ideas like that?
Yeah. All right. I see no hands or no questions, so I'm gonna move forward and go to the next quick little thing here. So this is the last topic that I wanted to touch on tonight. So this was the Southwest Industrial Corridor Transportation Planning Study. So we've been approached. Well, let me back up. This is a study that's being put on by CDOT, so the Chicago Department of Transportation, as well as DPD, which is the Department of Planning and Development. And it's focused on understanding and addressing the challenges of both freight transportation and industrial development. I believe it's across the city, but this one in particular is just the Southwest Industrial Corridor. So it's this circled area here on the map. We are this little gray island here with this little purple PMD zone here. So right about here. So we're almost in the middle of it basically. And some of the ideas that they wanted to look at or understand was, how understanding the challenges that are faced by communities. They want to, identify some opportunities to address those issues, and by either gathering info through community outreach, various planning studies, things like that. But then they want to use that information that they gather to support development and policy solutions to kind of attack those issues that were brought up. And then they would also use that information to also recommend future actions. So something, we could recommend something that is not an issue now, but we could foresee it being an issue in 2, 3, 5 years from now, and they should kind of be aware of that. So some of the things, so we were approached by their consulting group end of last week, asking if we could send somebody to talk with them in a kind of a listening session about some initial thoughts and concerns that we and the neighborhood have And so before we just go and talk to them, we want to get some input from some of you folks about what some of the issues you can see in sort of this larger transportation area, and some of the ideas that they kind of have is things like air quality, community engagement when planning decisions are made, development, how things are governed, whether it's environmental quality issues or zoning or planning, whatever it's going to be. Truck traffic, I know that's been talked about a number of times by people in the neighborhood, as well as other transportation needs. So in this instance, it's lack of bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, how to reduce collisions with those pedestrians and bicyclists, things like that. So if there's any questions or comments or kind of initial thoughts, I don't really have much information beyond this, but I'm interested to see what you guys have. See, Sean has a comment here. What's left of the street wall is important as neat. The existing buildings can be anchored for development TOD. Okay, yeah, it's going back to the previous point about keeping the Ashland street wall. That's a good issue that we can kind of keep in mind here for our Ashland study. What about this one here for the community concerns about the larger us and then as well as the larger transportation area that we talked about? Any initial thoughts, comments? We're happy to bring
This
down
the
stuff
place
to
to
them.
bring our truck route complaint.
It very well could be, because I've emailed CDOT a number of times and there's been crickets. So maybe we could say 35th Street, that specific
Truck
part.
route, 35th Street, 2 schools and a library. No.
Cut it out. That's funny. Yeah, we could do that.
And just so everybody knows, we struggle as a committee and a council, and like we mentioned, the asphalt plant. We're not anti-industrial. We're pro-work, and we want more industry here, but responsible and receptive to the neighborhood. So we don't want to just convert all of these buildings into condos and that'll add another traffic. Because some people don't know what happens on the north side with gentrification and traffic patterns and just putting in stores and condos, what that leads to. So we want to keep this as a vibrant, working class neighborhood there you can raise your family safely, and if you want to get a job, right, or whatever it is. So it's a tough balance for us, and I don't think people understand it, because we're not about either or. We want, I want to say, we're kind of a greedy council. We want everything. We want a great neighborhood, we want great jobs, we want great restaurants, great services. And I don't think a lot of the developers even hear that from certain neighbors, because certain people want certain things. But we as a council want it all. We want good, responsible industry. We want good commercial stores. We want affordable housing. We want low-income housing. We want green spaces. So I just want to put that out there, is that we're a council that tries to balance all the interests for everybody here. And it's a difficult task. And just appreciate you letting me comment, and appreciate all the new people on this call. So.
And actually, sorry, is it Chad? Is it you that's going to this meeting on Friday? No? Okay. I can't remember. But one of the things that I like also regarding like what's here as a cyclist, I have two, like Ashland, like Archer, between Ashland and Kedzie gets a little scarier, and like south of Kedzie is just scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a cyclist.
Mike, you got a question?
I've just got a few comments around what we've been talking about. So just looking at that map of Ashland, like one thing that seems missing is actually green space. There's not, I mean, we have McKinley Park, but that's like way over on the other side of the neighborhood. So like maybe a park or something like that would be nice along there. I know there's a ton of parking lots and things that we could possibly convert in the PMD, but that might be something to look at. The other thing, sorry, I'm just gonna kind of rant for a bit. The other thing is that like the Ashland Orange Line station, something to think about is like how can we make that less of like I'm I don't know. Whenever I go there, which I don't go there very often, it's like just like surrounded by concrete and sadness, and like how do we make that stop a little bit more inviting, a little bit more kind of like pedestrian friendly? Because like getting from there to anywhere else in the neighborhood is just terrifying. And then just thinking about like the transportation stuff, I think, I don't know, I wish it were easier to do like truck bypasses on a city grid. It's not it's not really something that works very well, but I just like, there is going to be truck traffic and that's fine, and I wish they were all electric trucks or whatever, but we were not there yet. But while we have to deal with all the diesel, I wish there was a way for them to just like not go through residential areas. I don't know. And then, yeah, I think that's all I've got.
Okay, those are good thoughts. We can certainly bring that to both the UIC group as well as anybody else that's a part of, so like Alderman's office, whoever that ends up being, things like that. I do want to make your little park comment. I know it's not much, but there is technically a park at what is that, Robinson? It's right here. It's white on the map, but there is one small little park. It's the reason why there's the speed camera on Archer Avenue. That is the park that they are putting it by. So I do want to point that out. It's like this little, it's a playground. You can drive by there. It's right there. Nobody uses it. I've never seen anyone there, but it is a park there. It's the name escapes me. What park that is? But yeah, it's there. I know. But yeah, that's a good point with some green space. There's also one here, I think, too. They think that's Kuczynski Murphy Park is pretty close to Ashland as well, right in this area. Which I'm not sure why it's not on this map, but there's some parks there. They're small, but they're there. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Chad, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if this is or people feel the same way or unreasonable, but like as a person that has to go to Jewel all the time, I feel like it's quite hellish to walk there. It's just really difficult. And even if you go on the park side, you have to go basically almost to Western in order to do like a crosswalk. I just don't know if there's, with the in and out, if there's a way to put like a crosswalk or a light, kind of like how at the strip mall on Halstead and 31st, they kind of have a light that goes in and out. And then even exiting out Jewel, you can take a right, but then you got to go through the whole entire neighborhood or block. And at least just for me, I feel like there's just really bad pedestrian walking to Jewel, which is a place I try and go weekly and stuff, and I find it quite infuriating.
Yeah, I kind of wish there were some of those like pedestrian crossings that are only like on when you press a button rather than like a regular traffic light. Like, so I know I think I've heard from
that's a good
other
one.
people, like there's already a light at both ends of Archer on Jewel, but like, could we have something in the middle?
And I do shop at Cermak, but their cheese selection, you got to go to Mariano's or Jewel for the cheese. Sometimes they won't have certain items, but I do try to go to Cermak as much as possible.
There was, I'm trying to think, in the neighborhood plan, I don't think it was like in the middle of Arch Avenue, but there was some sections along at Levitt, and there's one currently now on Ashland Avenue at Archer where there's pedestrian islands, so it makes it a little more, it makes it a little safer because there's some concrete and curbs around you as you cross the street. I think there's one over by Horizon on Pershing as well. So there is some opportunity to try to, it doesn't really affect traffic a whole lot. I don't think it really at all, but it does make that pedestrian and potentially bicyclists crossing the street, just a little bit safer, which is what we want, right? Any other questions? Mike, I see your hand raised, but is that just a lazy hand? Okay, all right. Anything else that we want to talk about?
Would you throw that list up for the transportation meeting one more time?
Which way? This way?
That one. Yeah, I just wanted to look at it again and see if we had anything else.
Yeah, I mean, something that come to mind is, you know, air quality just for the southwest side in general, and the south side in general is just terrible. The city put out a report, I think, end of last year, beginning of last year maybe, looking at, you know, health disparities on and across the city, and of course the south and west side was all red, so it's not particularly good for whatever metrics that they were using. So that's always an important issue. And then community engagement was something that we've always struggled with, and I'm sure other community groups always struggle with, is just you know, knowing that we're being heard, knowing that we're being included in the conversation. That we could always feel like that there's more input to be given by both community groups as well as just residents in general. Let's see, there's a comment here regarding the Ashland development. I think the neighborhood would benefit from additional housing, perhaps above retail. We need additional density to make more businesses viable. Agreed that, you know, that was one of the suggestions in the neighborhood plan, was to focus on mixed use, which is exactly that. It's 2 or 3 stories, or, you know, more depending on kind of what the zoning is, on the second floor above, and then mixed use on the first floor, whether that's live workspaces or just shops and you know, other things like that. So that's always a good comment in kind of what we strive to see in developments here. Develop the parking lot. Yeah. Okay. So just general comments about parking lots. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah,
Kate?
regarding air quality, I actually wanted you guys to know that N4EJ has actually set up a net. We are now being monitored by Purple. That's the name of the company, air quality monitors. And anybody can look this up and see what the particulate count is on any given day. And like actually see what you're breathing. And they are also planning, there is a hearing next month, finally, a public hearing for matte asphalt. So that's exactly what I'm talking about, Josh. So as we get more information about it, we want to pass that along. I mean, we'd really like to have a full house for people to come out and say, no, you can't have this in our neighborhood. So as we get more information about that, we'll try and distribute it. We've also been starting, and I'm not directly part of N4EJ, but their president lives 2 doors down from me, so we talk. So one of the things that we've been talking about is like also, you know, they've spent a lot of time thinking about how to handle the regulatory angle and really going after them from a regulatory angle, but also kind of starting to look at, okay, it's been 3 years, like what else can we do? Are there ways that we can go after their pocketbook? Are there ways that we can actually go after their business, raise a stink, raise public awareness? Do we need like a door knocking campaign or something like that? And so obviously like N4EJ would be the lead on that. It's really their baby. But on the other hand, if anybody here would like to help, please make yourself known, and you will be used.
Mike, I see your question here about the previous developments that were introduced, I think in October 2019 maybe. So I do have some updates on some of them. Other ones I haven't heard anything. So I don't know if you've gone down Archer and Western recently. You know, the old Walgreens has been torn down, so it looks like they're readily moving ahead with the Starbucks / 7-Eleven over there. I don't have a timeline on when that's done, but you know, they're actively constructing. I've asked the Alderman's office for an update about the Flatiron building at the corner of Hoyne, 35th and Archer. The developer has not gotten back yet about when they were, what their timeline is. last I heard, they were supposed to be done in a year, which the year clock was expired in December of 2020. So not quite sure yet. And then I have reached out to, I believe the representative for the group at Archer and Levitt was Agnes was her name. I have also not heard anything back from her yet, but I will give her another poke. Admittedly, I emailed her, a couple days ago, so it's still kind of fresh in her, hopefully fresh in her inbox. But once we hear, we will definitely pass it along to folks. And then question here, how are Senator Munoz and Rep Ma advocating for us in regards to Matt's state permit? Why do we never hear from them about this, or have I just missed it? That's a good question. I don't know that they've continued their fight. I think there was some initial voices in way early on, but we can ask them, or maybe we can follow up with N4EJ and see if they have a better idea about who else is advocating for what. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Going once, going twice. I don't want to keep folks for too long here. So, all right, just the last couple things here. As usual, we're always interested in kind of knowing what you guys want to talk about, what you guys want to know about. If you have a issue, a topic, or something, say, I want to know more about this, or I heard about X. What do you know? We can find out. We can present on whatever you want us to do for the next meeting. You can do that by getting in touch with us, either email, through Facebook. We have a Twitter, and we have an Instagram. All should be under MPDC or McKinley Park Development Council. One of those two scenarios. And like I said, we all 11 of us live in the all 11 board members live in the neighborhood, so you can hopefully easily find some of us and just stop us on the street. I know I'm always willing to listen. I was out earlier today and felt like 6 degrees with my dog, and we're out walking. We were walking fast, but we were out walking. So you can always do that as well. And as always, we appreciate you guys coming out. We appreciate your voice, and we can't do what we do without you guys, without knowing what you guys want. So the more engagement that you have with us, or with the more engagement that we can have with officials about actually knowing what the community wants at large. So I do want one more plug here for please, if you feel strongly about the ward rezoning or the ward redrawing, either fill out that Google form, sign up to talk, write your own letter. If you don't want to send it, please send it to us and we can forward it on. You can be as anonymous or unanonymous as you guys want with this kind of thing. There's phone numbers and emails that you have that we think we dropped it in the chat, and then we'll do a follow-up as well with that. So with that, I want to thank you all for coming out. I appreciate your time. I'll give you guys back 6 minutes here, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks with the next meeting. Thanks. Bye, everybody.